everybody's presence here, and we'll go in, just since it's just nice for him to have as much time as possible, that we'll go ahead and get started, and then when he gets back, just let him take over. But if you will, just take some deep breaths, and that's kind of a good plan all the time. And just to continue to just allow your divine presence to be in this space, in this moment. And as we continue to breathe, this is from the Daily Word. Old thoughts and old conditions are as waters that have passed away in this new year. There is only
Liz
God.
turns it on. See how it's
There is
recording?
only good.
And then we're going
I begin this new year
we're going to try
knowing
to do
that God is
but
in it.
But sometimes
Therefore, only
move
good
back and forth.
is in it.
Because I want to get it moving.
I begin this new
Then I gotta
year
get down and set
with
my cameras
faith,
up and it's okay. Okay.
confidence, and joyous anticipation. In this new year, I anticipate only good. I anticipate new happiness, new health, new courage, new strength, new freedom. I anticipate new friends, new opportunities, new achievements, and new ideas. I begin this year anew with God. I discard old thoughts. I change old habits. I release old limitations. I reorder my life. I give thanks to God for this opportunity to begin anew. With God's help, I let go of past limitations and take hold of new, good. Anxious thoughts, regrets, or painful memories about past events no longer have place in my mind. They are as waters that are passed away.
There's a couple up there.
I begin this new year with spirit. This is Psalms 84. Passing through the valley of weeping, they make it a place of springs. So I'm so grateful for everybody's presence, and just for those who don't know Paul, I think most everybody's probably looks like in the classrooms been available for Paul's past presentations or even outside of Unity. He's one of our favorite presenters to just bring such a light to history, and his way of sharing it to me has just really changed my way of seeing a lot of perspectives about historical events and different circumstances, and especially some of the religious talks he's given just really brings a light to, just brings it into a different form for me, and just trust that we'll have 3 presentations this month, and hope you can join us for all of them. And on this one we'll be addressing just Greece or Athens mainly, just the part of Athens that Athens have played in our history. So just so appreciate, Paul, you being here, and thank you for coming.
All right, Paul, bring it up. I might try to get a wide angle so you don't have to move this.
Thank you, Barry, and thank you all. It's always a
Yeah, see,
treat
like
to
that.
start
I like a
my
closer
new year
shot.
here at Unity.
So,
This is my
okay.
first presentation of the year, as it has been for many years. So it's my good luck way of starting the year, and I thank you for the opportunity. Thursday, this week was Epiphany, which means we're at the season of the Boar's Head Festival. Now, for many of you here, you've heard this spiel before, but if you haven't, I want you to listen to this opportunity. Every year at TCU, they put on, the folks over there put on the Boar's Head Festival. Now, I'd heard about it. I didn't know what it was or anything about it, and so one year, my wife had a niece that was gonna be in the Boar's Head Festival, so we were supposed to go. So I said, well, I don't know, how long is it? Well, I'll find out. Well, let's find out, it's about an hour. Okay, well, that's an hour, I mean, it can't be, we can put up with anything for an hour. So, I went in the 30th anniversary year of the Boar's Head Festival, and sat, and from the moment it was started to the moment it ended, I was enraptured. And when it was over, I got up and started kicking the pew. And my wife said, "Have you gone crazy? What is wrong with you?" I said, "I'm mad." "Why are you mad?" "Because they've been doing this 30 years, and I've been here." That was 11 years ago. And since then, I have not only not missed, but I have been a missionary to tell people, particularly people over in Dallas who don't know about things going on in Fort Worth, that you need to go. So it's this afternoon at 3 p.m. and at 5 p.m. Now, it does last just 1 hour. It is free. And there really are no bad seats because it is a pageant. And it's constantly moving around you. It's hard to explain why it's so meaningful. But I guarantee you, from the very beginning, from the first event of this festival, you're going, what is going on? And it's constant, let's say, a constant delight of color and sound and of message. So if you're not doing anything this afternoon, I recommend you go to Fort Worth University Christian Church, which is the TCU church there on University. And you have to be there if you want a seat about 2 o'clock. Or if you're going to the 5 o'clock, you need to be there just after at 4 o'clock, just after they finish the first service. And I don't think there's anybody here that wouldn't be touched by it. Every year I'll take any number of people, or encourage any number of people to go, and invariably people will say, that was really uplifting. It's the end of the Christmas season. We think Christmas ending on the 25th, but really ends on Epiphany, and this is sort of that festival. So, Boar's Head, Yule Log Feast, a festival not to be missed. If you can't make it this year, you need to go sometime. So, end of not except as is was there yesterday, and y'all were there yesterday. Anybody want to speak to it?
Well, it was phenomenal. But I go every year, ever since you introduced it to me. I guess that was about 2009.
Yeah.
That you were here, and you said, if you don't have something to do this afternoon, go over there, and some of us took you up on it. And it is a very important part of my Christmas, and it is just amazing. I was just sharing with these people that when they ask you not to applaud until the end, you have to keep reminding yourself. Because you really want to get up and give them a standing ovation so many times.
They do a great job of it. It's very unusual. Most Boar's Heads are done at Episcopal churches because it comes out of the Church of England. But for some reason, these disciples of Christ over in Fort Worth, 41 years ago, decided they wanted to do it. And they have done it with a vengeance. I mean, it's one of the finest in the country now.
And every year.
Every year.
Some people.
And they, well, they have a board of over $1 million at least. And so, something that people, particularly people who love art, music, that kind of thing, it's always touches people in different ways. Yes, ma'am?
What, my grandson's 7, would it be good?
Okay, they have children in it and a couple of dogs in it.
Okay,
Yes.
They even have dogs in it, yeah. It's,
okay.
They're
Yeah,
gonna get an house.
when they say family friendly,
Oh,
it's true.
Yeah, made me wonder how if their insurance company knows what they're doing.
Yeah, yeah, well, it's
You know, they
probably
rappel
not.
off this, from the ceiling on those ropes, they come back.
Well, it's probably a little bit iffy, for sure. Anyway, you,
That's exciting.
yeah, very, very beautiful. So anyway, John Lipinski has had to go and run an errand, but I drag out my wildest tie, and I still can't outdo him. John Lipinski is in a class by himself. Yeah, so when it comes to fashion, we're talking today about sacred cities. Now, the reason these are sacred cities is because, number one, a lot of sacred activity took place in these cities. Two, they are cities that were models for religious activity down through the centuries. And there are places which we need to understand and appreciate, but most particularly because Western civilization is founded on what came out of these three cities, most particularly American civilization. And so today I want to talk about Athens, and I want to talk about Alexandria, Egypt, and I want to talk about Rome. And I have a cliffhanger for those of you that are willing to stick with us for 3 weeks. I'm going to explain in the third week how all of this ties back to, of all places, Texas. There is an interesting and very special connection between Texas and all three of these cities and the cultures they represent. So hang in for that if you're willing to do it. Now, I want to start by talking about how Athens came to be. Now, Athens was a site very near the port, and but the Greeks are always looking for a place where there's a hill that they can put on, they can have their temple on top. This, in this case, is called the Acropolis. And this is the reason that Athens is where it is. Now, one of the early invaders of the area were the famous Amazons. Now, the Amazons are unique women in that they lived as women only, and the Amazon women did not have anything to do with men except once a year. Once a year they would visit a tribe of all men, and they would have, let's say, get together, party, and then 9 months later they'd have some children, and if the children were boys, they'd take them back to the men, and if they were girls, they would keep them. And then the next thing they did is they cauterized the right breast of each girl. According to the legend, the historian Herodotus tells us to cauterize the right breast. Why? So it wouldn't grow. Why? So that, and they pulled back the arrow, the breast would not impede their shooting of the arrow. So Amazon means a, without, Maison, breast. Amazon. Now, I got to thinking about this word when I was putting this together, and I was wonder why Jeff Bezos chose the word Amazon for his company. And the story of Jeff Bezos, by the way, is an interesting story. The founder of Amazon, which is now the largest company in the world by capitalization. It's even bigger than Walmart. And Jeff Bezos, I discovered, was not born Jeff Bezos. He was born Jeff Jorgensen. He had a Scandinavian father and an American mother, and he was born grew up in Houston. And as you might expect, he was a star student. And it's not very bright guy. But anyway, his mother remarried a man named Bezos. And so Bezos adopted him, Jeff, and so he became Jeff Bezos. Anyway, so but he's a Texas boy, so that's unique. Anyway, he went off to college in New England, Ivy League, and when that was over, he had this idea for an online distribution company. And the idea of an online distribution company had already been around, but what his idea was is that everything would be available at one site. And that was his ultimate goal. And so he built, he decided that the best place to start a new company was Seattle, Washington. So he drove by himself in his car from New England to Washington, Seattle, and set up and called it Amazon, not after the women, but after the river that's named after the women in Brazil, because the Amazon, out of the Amazon comes all of this cornucopia of things. And this idea of just endless flow of merchandise is why he got the idea for Amazon. Now, this is interesting to me in that he was using a mythical allusion, ultimately going back to this legendary founders of Athens. This is just one teeny tiny example of how Athens comes to influence our lives. Because more people go to order things on Amazon than any place else, by far actually. And so Jeff Bezos had the right idea at the right time, and it's been amazing. Now, I want to talk to you about one particular place in Athens as a way of explaining the enormity of the civilization, of the impact of the civilization, which is really stunning. Now, that place, of course, is the Acropolis and all the things that surround the Acropolis. Now, in this one snapshot, you can get an idea of all the things that the Greeks gave us, but primarily through this one city. All the great thinkers, all the great writers, everybody in the golden age of Athens was here in this spot. Now, let's start at the beginning. We're going to go from the bottom to the top through the famous 4 A's. The first A is the Agora. Now, the Agora, we still have this word in English. In psychology, they talk about agoraphobia. Now, if you have agoraphobia, what do you have fear of? It's the crowd. So, guess what the Agora was?
Marketplace?
The marketplace. Yes. So people would go to the marketplace, and if you went there on a typical day, particularly market day, it would just be mobbed. It'd just be wall. And if you didn't like people being around that many people, it made you very nervous and very full of anxiety. So the Agora was the place of commerce. What's ironic, if you go there today, the Acropolis, which in the old days would just have a few people going up there to do religious observances, you go up there today, it looks like there's 1 million people on top because all the cruise lines dump all the people out. They all go to one place they want to see. They want to see the Parthenon. And so you go up there, and it's just, you have to just, even though it's a big area on top, you have to kind of squeeze around and get through. It's really almost impossible to get a group picture because you can't get people together in this mess. And that where the Agora was, there's nobody there. It's empty field. So history brings us great irony. If you came back to this place 1,000 years from now, what do you suppose this will be? It'll probably still be here because it's made of concrete. Well, it might be a drug rehabilitation center, maybe a staircase center. The one thing I probably would guess it won't be is a Unity Church. And the reason I say that is because, in case you haven't been paying attention the last 50 years, churches are dying at a rather staggering rate. And we're kind of, don't see that because we're too close to it. Because we don't see the long perspective of time. But anyway, the next most important hill is, of course, the famous Areopagus. Now the Areopagus, Ares, of course, was the god of war, and Pagus means hill. So the Areopagus is where the government took place. Now, the government being quite different from what we would think of. Originally, the government had been like it is, was so in so many places in the world, and that is some kind of monarchy. You'd have a king, and then the son of the king, and so forth. In other words, one person rule, better known as a dictatorship. Well, there was a man named Solon. Now Solon, this is about 500 years before the time of Christ. And Solon that's responsible more than anybody for the golden age of Athens. Solon had an idea that the citizens should decide not only who the ruler is, but also decide the important issues of the day, whether to build a road or a temple or whatever. And it's this kind of revolutionary idea that you wouldn't think would survive, but Solon was so persuasive, and despite many, many obstacles, he eventually put in a system that is the foundation for what we think of today as democracy or Republican with a small r government, a government of the citizens. Now, we have to immediately explain that the concept of citizen at that time is very restricted compared to what it is today. A citizen in the Athenian world was a man, an adult man, who had some kind of property here defined as property and goods, so that every year they would take a census and they would find out how much stuff you had. So if you had 500 measures of something valuable, so this could be bushels of wheat, this could be jars of wine, this could be olive oil, it could be cattle, anything that they called a measure, right? You had 500 of those, then they called you this is a long word, get ready, Pentecostium adimnoi, which means the men who have 500. In other words, you were a 500 man. A 500 man meant that you were at the top of the system, which is basically a plutocracy. In other words, those folks that have money or the equivalent of money are the ones who do the ruling. They're the citizens. And so the Pentecostium, Pentecost, in this case, Pentecostium, means 500, and then a dimnoi, the men that owned the 500 men, they would be citizens. Then they had the 300 men. These are called the horsemen, or the men who are wealthy enough to own a horse. But they had to have 300 measures of something. You see how the system worked. In other words, when they came around to check you out, you gathered together everything you had. You might even borrow stuff to make sure you had at least 500 or 300. And then it went down to 200. So you're still a citizen. But when you get down to 100 or below, meaning you down to zero, to where you had nothing of any consequence, then you were considered not a citizen. In other words, the government was run by the people who produced the wealth, or to put it another way, who had the wealth, or to put it another way, who had the gold, the golden rule. Those who have the gold rule. And that's what exactly it was in Athens. Now you can criticize that, but what Solon did was revolutionary compared to what the way it had been before. Before, it's basically kind of a tribal thing where somebody becomes chieftain somehow, and then that person just passes it down through the family. And we have plenty of examples still today of monarchies, and a few of them are absolute monarchies. Now in England, we have the monarchy, but the monarchy has no political power. It has great influence, but no political power. So that's how the English kind of worked it out. They kept the old system and the new at the same time. But anyway, all of this took place then on the Areopagus. So it was on the Areopagus they would come and vote. It's on the Areopagus, the very first jury trial, which was not 12 but 10 men, all of them citizens, and they would decide whether a person was guilty of murder or some other grave crime. And it was on the Areopagus where people would come and speak. In other words, if you were a visitor to Athens, they were interested in hearing about your culture, where you came from. And when new ideas came through town, this is where somebody would speak. So who spoke on the Areopagus? None other than, of course, Paul, St. Paul. And they listened very carefully to what he had to say. And basically, what he talked about is, what's Christianity? He explained his faith. And so this is one of the very first places Christianity is introduced to the world through Paul, because the influence of Athens was enormous. Whatever went on in Athens then spread to the Greek world. Then you have the Areopagus. Excuse me, the Acropolis. Acro means high, polis means city, like our words polis, political, and so forth. So the city, Acro, high, a high city, the Parthenon. Now the Parthenon, the famous temple to Athena. Why is it called Parthenon? Parthos means virgin. And non, of course, means temple. So it's the place of the virgin. And the virgin is Athena, who is the patron saint, or the patron goddess, better way of saying it, of Athens. Now this is really the center of the center. In other words, Athens is the center of the Greek world, and the Parthenon is the center of that world. And they believed that it was Athena that protected them and then gave them their great power. They had a huge statue of her called the Palladium. The Palladium comes from the word palace. One of her many titles is Pallas Athena. And Pallas Athena, she was a very, very important, because she is born not of a woman. She is a very, very strong misogynist. Miso means to hate. Gyno means womb. And of course, only women have wombs. So she was a very famous hater of women, even though she was a woman, because she wasn't born of a woman, and she repudiated women at every turn. In fact, she said she honored men in all things except one thing. The one thing that one did that she did not appreciate marriage. Because marriage tied men and women together. And I